Hi Year 3 and 4. Today we're going to look at some history related to our topic, in particular the history of the extinction of the dodo bird. Now I want you to do your own research about this to find out why it happened, and I don't want to do any spoilers today, but I did want to teach you a little bit about how historians use sources of evidence to discover facts about the past. Sometimes those sources of evidence can be very misleading and can result in historians coming up with a very wrong idea about how something happened in the past. So we're going to have a closer look at that now. So this is the skill sheet that we sent you, and it's also up on our webpage. And I'm looking at the Year 3 history skills. So I've picked out, can you use various sources of evidence to answer questions and piece together information about a period in history? And for you Year 4s listening, we're going to be researching at least 2 versions of an event and trying to discuss why they differ. And I'm hoping that you can communicate your knowledge and understanding either by speaking it to someone in your family or writing it and emailing it to me so I can see what you've come up with. And some facts before we start. The top web address is where I've got most of this information from. It's a reliable source because it's BBC, but I've looked closely at the evidence that site has picked out for us. And a little bit of a fact here, the first recorded mention of the dodo was by Dutch sailors in 1598, remember that date? And in the following years, the bird disappeared off the face of the earth. The last widely accepted sighting of a dodo was in 1662. So we're looking at the dates between 1598 and 1662, between when we first discovered the dodo and when we last saw it. So our first piece of evidence, our first source, has been discovered by my friend here, and it is an original drawing of a dodo in Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, which was written in 1865. So we can see from this illustration that the dodo is larger than child size and has a hand and carries a stick. So we're going to have to think about whether that's actually a useful piece of historical information, whether there's anything that can help us to understand about the dodo's life, or whether it's just an illustration from a very good book. Our second piece of evidence, discovered by my elephant friend, is a sketch made in 1628. Now that's an interesting date that falls between our dates for the existence of the dodo. It was sketched by Thomas Herbert, who was a traveller and a historian, and he'd visited the island of Mauritius, where dodos were last sighted. So the dates are interesting, and the fact that he'd been to Mauritius are interesting. But I think we need to take note that he is not an artist. Not professionally anyway, everyone can be an artist if they practice, but this guy was a traveller and a historian. He's also drawn a picture of a hen in the middle. Now we know what a hen looks like. It's another word for a chicken. So how convinced are we about his skills at representing something he has seen in real life? Now, my little friend here would like it known that he is not an orangutan, he's a gorilla, but he wanted to take part in this, and he has found a painting from the date 1626 by a Dutch artist who claimed that he had painted the dodo from real life. But there is a lot of evidence today to suggest he only ever saw preserved specimens, so stuffed versions of the animal. So we like to pretend that he had travelled to Mauritius, but we're not entirely sure whether that was true. Now this is by a professional artist, so it's got that in its favour. A professional artist should be accurate, but are we sure as to whether he has seen an original dodo or not? So my friend the cassowary is playing the part of the dodo here for us. He has found a photograph of an actual skeleton which is currently in the Natural History Museum, and it's a skeleton of a dodo, or is it? It's actually made up of bones from several different birds, all found on the island of Mauritius, and they were found around 1850. And the bones were put together, and it was believed that they formed an entire dodo skeleton. But these bones were found in a big collection of all sorts of bones. Can we be confident that they give us an accurate picture of what the dodo would have looked like? And finally, my almost panda friend would like to show you this, a very recent reconstruction put together by historians in the last few years of bones found by an explorer in about 1900, found on the island of Mauritius. And it is believed that this is the reconstruction of an entire dodo. But the bones were discovered quite a long time after dodos had become extinct, and they were certainly put together very, very recently. Now, when you look at this image, it reminds me of a dinosaur. And the history of dinosaur understanding teaches us that we had a very wrong interpretation of how dinosaurs actually looked based on their bones. And that is changing day by day in the historical community about how we understand how dinosaurs must have looked. So although this is new, recent reconstruction, and we should be confident that the historians know what they're doing, is there ever a time in history where we can really say that we are the best at understanding items from the past and putting them together correctly? So now that you've seen those sources of evidence, it's over to you to decide whether you think they are reliable and useful, whether some are and some aren't, whether some are better than others, in helping you put together a picture of what the dodo must have looked like. When we have a good understanding of what it might have looked like, we might be able to work out what caused its death. Now again, without wanting to give you any spoilers about the different theories that people have come up with, some theories are based on the idea that the dodo was a very plump, juicy, chubby little bird, and that was part of the problem. Some people think it's because the bird had very short legs, and that caused it not to be able to escape from particular predators. There's all sorts of possibilities, but unless we can be confident we know what the dodo looked like, we can't really be sure which of those theories is the most likely to be true. So I would love to see your written or hear your oral versions of your understanding of that, and I hope you have fun being a history detective. Bye for now.